The great hall of the United Galactic Council gleamed with polished stone and shimmering light from a dozen alien suns. Representatives from 57 spacefaring civilizations sat in tiered seats, their varied bodies, from crystalline structures to gelatinous masses, all focused on the central podium. High Counselor Trell, with skin like burnished copper and 4 eyes that blinked in sequence, raised his upper limbs for silence. The pacification treaty is now in effect, Trell announced, his voice amplified throughout the chamber. After 3 centuries of bloodshed, we have agreed that no species may carry, produce, or use weapons of any kind within Council space. Commander Jack Stone shifted uncomfortably in his seat. As Earth's first representative to the Council, he had inherited a difficult position. Humans were newcomers to the galactic community, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 15 years earlier. All personal defense needs will be met by Council peacekeepers, Trell continued. Any world found developing weapons technology will face immediate sanctions. The alien representatives clicked, whistled, and hummed their approval. Jack noticed several representatives turn their visual organs toward him, making no effort to hide their disdain. Later, in the reception hall, Jack found himself approached by Diplomat Krex, a tall being with gray skin that shifted colors with his mood. "Commander Stone," Krex said, his skin flushing slightly blue. "Your species must be relieved by this treaty." Jack sipped the strange purple liquid he had been assured was safe for human consumption. "How so?" "Well," Krex's skin rippled with yellow amusement. "Humans are known to rely heavily on artificial weapons. You lack natural defenses. No claws, weak teeth, fragile skin." He gestured to his own arm, which suddenly sprouted spikes. "Most species evolved some natural protection." Jack nodded politely. "We manage." "Yes, but now in the peace of Council space, your weakness won't matter." Krex's tone was friendly, but his words stung. "Though I wonder what you'll do in the tournament." "Tournament?" A booming voice cut through the hall as Trell made another announcement. "The annual combat tournament will begin in 30 days. All Council members are invited to field competitors." Jack turned back to Krex, confused. "A tradition," Krex explained, "to channel competitive instincts safely. No weapons, only natural abilities allowed." He flashed his spikes again. "My people won 3 years running before the Luminary developed their crystal shields." Jack watched as various aliens demonstrated natural weapons: venomous stingers, retractable claws, acid glands, one being split into 3 separate entities that could fight independently. "Humans will participate?" Jack asked. "Of course, all Council members must. It promotes unity." Krex's skin flashed with bright orange. "Though nobody expects much from your team. Without your guns and bombs, what can humans do?" Jack's communicator buzzed. Admiral Wilson from Earth Command was calling for an update. "Well?" the Admiral asked when Jack answered in private. "Treaty signed." "Yes, sir," Jack replied. "But there's a complication. They have a fighting tournament. No weapons allowed, only natural abilities." "Perfect," the Admiral said, surprising Jack. "This is our chance." "Sir, they think we're weak without our technology. They don't understand what humans are capable of with just our bodies." The Admiral smiled. "Commander, I'm sending you our best fighters. It's time to show the galaxy what humans can do with nothing but our fists." Jack looked back at the alien representatives still mingling, still underestimating Earth. He thought about human history, thousands of years of hand-to-hand combat techniques refined to deadly efficiency. "They think we're defenseless," Jack said quietly. "This might be interesting after all." Jack stood at the entrance of the massive training complex, watching aliens of every description prepare for the tournament. The facility sprawled across several acres, with sections designed to accommodate the needs of diverse species. "Impressive, isn't it?" said a voice beside him. Jack turned to see a being made of what appeared to be living crystal. Light refracted through her translucent body, creating rainbow patterns on the floor. "I'm Lex of the Luminary," she said, extending a crystalline hand that clinked softly as Jack shook it. First time seeing the training grounds. First time seeing most things out here, Jack admitted. I'm Commander Stone, Earth representative. Ah, humans. Lex's crystal face shifted in what might have been a smile. You're competing. Before Jack could answer, a hulking creature with 6 muscular arms approached. Its leathery skin was covered in tribal markings, and each hand ended in retractable claws. Don't waste your time, Lex, the creature growled. The humans won't last a day. Soft creatures with no natural weapons. This is Gorv, Lex explained, champion of the Dravik for the past 2 cycles. Gorv flexed his multiple arms. The rules are simple, human. No brought weapons, only what nature gave you. Jack nodded. I understand. Do you? Gorv leaned closer. Look around. Jack surveyed the training area. In one section, a group of tentacled beings practiced shooting paralyzing darts from hidden glands. Nearby, a squad of insectoid aliens drilled in perfect formation, their exoskeletons clicking as they moved. In another area, Jack noticed slender beings floating inches above the ground, their eyes glowing as they practiced mental attacks. One of them caused a training dummy to collapse without touching it. The Mindweavers, Lex explained. Telepathic abilities count as natural. Jack walked deeper into the facility, observing each species. Some could fly, others could generate electric shocks, and one group could combine into larger fighting forms. Every alien seemed to have some evolutionary advantage the humans lacked. A tall official approached Jack with a datapad. Earth competitor, I need your squad's natural weapons for the registry. We don't have any, Jack replied. No claws, no venom, no special abilities. The official looked confused. Then how will you fight? With these, Jack held up his fists. The official and several nearby aliens burst into laughter. Your soft appendages, Gorb sneered, against battle claws and acid sprays. The tournament begins in 3 weeks, the official said, still chuckling as he walked away. Good luck, human. Jack's communicator buzzed. Stone here. Commander, this is Captain Reed. Earth's combat team has arrived at the station. Where should we meet you? The main training facility, Jack replied. And Captain, bring workout equipment. 2 hours later, Jack stood before 4 humans, the best fighters Earth had to offer. Mike was a heavyweight boxer with hands like sledgehammers. Lane moved with the fluid grace of someone who had mastered multiple martial arts. Rex, with his scared face and watchful eyes, brought decades of special forces experience. Danny, compact and powerful, was an Olympic wrestler with unmatched endurance. Welcome to Alien Fight Club, Jack said. They think we're defenseless without weapons. They don't know much about humans, do they? Mike grinned, punching his palm with a meaty fist. The team set up in a corner of the facility. As they began training, Lane flowing through kata, Mike hitting a punching bag, Rex and Danny grappling. Aliens stopped to watch with curious eyes. What are they doing? One asked. Fighting practice, another guessed. But they're just hitting air and each other. Gorv watched from a distance, his expression unreadable. They're not using weapons or natural abilities, he told Lex. Just their bodies. Perhaps, Lex replied, her crystal form glinting. Their bodies are their weapons. Jack caught fragments of their conversation and smiled. The aliens had no idea what was coming. Humans hadn't evolved natural weapons because they hadn't needed to. They had turned their entire bodies into weapons through thousands of years of combat evolution. Harder, Jack called to his team. 3 weeks until we show them what humans can do. The morning air filled with the rhythmic sound of fists striking leather. Mike worked the heavy bag with devastating combinations, each punch landing with a force that made nearby aliens pause and watch. Sweat poured down his dark skin as he finished with a thunderous right hook that sent the bag swinging wildly. These gloves are slowing me down, Mike complained, flexing his taped hands. "Tournament rules say I can't wear them in the actual fights." Jack nodded. "That's why we're training bare knuckle from now on. Your hands need to toughen up." Across the training area, Ling moved through complex forms with fluid precision. Her small frame belied her power as she executed kicks that could shatter bone and strikes targeted at vital points. Several luminari had gathered to observe, their crystalline bodies reflecting her movements like living mirrors. "They think she's dancing," Rex said quietly to Jack. He sat nearby, sharpening a stick with a stone, not to create a weapon, but to keep his hands busy while he studied their competition. His weather-beaten face remained impassive, but his eyes missed nothing. "Let them think whatever they want," Jack replied. "The surprise will work in our favor." Dani approached, her muscular frame glistening with sweat after a grueling strength session. "The Dravik are watching me," she said, nodding toward where Gorv and several of his six-armed kin stood. "They seem amused by my workout." "They don't understand what we're doing," Jack explained. "They rely on their natural advantages. We rely on skill and conditioning." The human team had quickly established a routine. Mornings began with strength and conditioning. Push-ups, pull-ups, sprints, and weight training using equipment they'd brought from Earth. Afternoons focused on combat skills, boxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and mixed martial arts. Evenings were for strategy and studying potential opponents. On the 10th day of training, a delegation of council officials came to observe. Among them was High Counselor Trell. "Commander Stone," Trell greeted Jack. "We are confused by your preparation methods." "How so?" Jack asked, though he knew the answer. "Your species appears to be practicing inefficient movement patterns without utilizing natural defenses." Trell's four eyes blinked in sequence. "Our combat specialists suggest you are wasting valuable training time." As if on cue, Rex and Dani began a sparring match. Rex threw a quick jab that Dani slipped before shooting for his legs. In seconds, she had him on the ground in a controlled hold. The aliens watched with bewilderment as Rex tapped Dani's arm, and she released him. "What purpose does this serve?" Trell asked. "They attack each other only to stop before victory." "It's called sparring," Jack explained. "They practice techniques without causing serious injury." "Fascinating," Trell said, though his tone suggested he found it primitive rather than impressive. "But how will this help against opponents with natural weapons?" Jack smiled. "You'll see soon enough." After the officials left, the team gathered for their evening strategy session. "They still don't get it," Mike said, unwrapping his hands. "They think we're helpless." "That's our advantage," Ling pointed out. "They won't expect what we bring to the fight." Rex nodded. "I've been watching the Mindweavers. Their telepathy has a range of about 10 feet. If we move fast enough, we can close distance before they can focus." "And the Dravik rely on those extra arms," Dani added. "But their joints are vulnerable. I've been studying their movement patterns." Jack looked at his team with pride. While the aliens mocked their seemingly primitive methods, the humans were analyzing, adapting, and preparing. They weren't just training their bodies, they were sharpening their most dangerous weapon, their minds. "One more week until the preliminary rounds," Jack said. "Let's show them what happens when you corner a species that spent its entire history learning how to fight." Outside the human training area, Gorv watched with narrowed eyes. For the first time, a flicker of doubt crossed his face as he observed these strange, soft creatures preparing for battle in ways he couldn't understand. The tournament arena rose like a gleaming coliseum at the center of the council's capital city. Massive view screens hovered above the circular fighting platform, broadcasting the matches to billions across the galaxy. 50,000 spectators filled the stands, their excited clicks, whistles, and rumbles creating a constant background noise. Jack stood with his team in the competitors' bay, watching the preliminary bout between a luminary crystal form and a gelatinous Morphean. The luminary's body refracted energy beams shot by the Morphean, eventually exhausting its opponent. "Mike, "You're up next," Jack said, checking the schedule. "Against Dravik champion Gorv." Mike nodded, bouncing lightly on his feet. About time. Been itching to see how those 6 arms hold up against a good old-fashioned right hook. An announcement echoed through the arena. Next match. Gorv of the Dravik versus Michael of Earth. The crowd buzzed with anticipation. Humans were newcomers, and rumors had spread about their strange training methods. Many spectators had placed bets against the soft-skinned species with no natural weapons. Mike stepped onto the platform, looking small compared to the towering 6-armed Gorv. The Dravik warrior flexed, extending razor-sharp claws from each hand. His fanged mouth stretched in what passed for a smile. "I'll try not to damage you permanently, human." Gorv's voice boomed across the arena. "Perhaps surrender now." Mike just rolled his shoulders and brought his fists up in a classic boxing stance. The match signal sounded. Gorv lunged forward with blinding speed, 4 arms extended to grab Mike, while 2 remained positioned to strike. The crowd roared, expecting a quick finish. But Mike wasn't where Gorv expected. With the practiced footwork of a seasoned boxer, he had sidestepped the rush. Before Gorv could recover, Mike landed a sharp jab to the Dravik's midsection. Gorv grunted in surprise rather than pain. He swung around, all 6 arms now lashing out in a deadly pattern designed to overwhelm any defense. Mike blocked 2 strikes, ducked under another, but caught a glancing blow from a 4th arm that sent him skidding backward. A thin line of blood had appeared on his cheek. The crowd cheered at first blood. "Your species bleeds so easily," Gorv taunted, advancing again. Mike wiped the blood away, his eyes never leaving his opponent. "We're used to it." The Dravik attacked again, but this time Mike didn't just dodge, he countered. A lightning-fast combination landed on Gorv's torso, followed by a hook to what passed for the alien's jaw. The impact made a sound that silenced the arena. Gorv staggered back, confusion evident in his eyes. He touched his face, looking at the dark fluid on his fingers with disbelief. "Your turn to bleed," Mike said quietly. The alien roared and charged, abandoning technique for raw aggression. Mike weathered the storm, blocking, slipping punches, and landing his own whenever openings appeared. The Dravik's superior reach and extra limbs scored hits, but Mike kept coming forward. By the 5th minute, Gorv was breathing heavily. His attacks slowed while Mike maintained his pace. The human strategy became clear. He was using Gorv's size and multiple limbs against him, making the Dravik work harder, burn more energy. In the 8th minute, Mike saw his opportunity. Gorv overextended with 4 arms simultaneously, leaving his center exposed. Mike stepped in with a perfect left hook to the body followed by a devastating right cross to the head. Gorv crashed to the platform. He struggled to rise, then collapsed. Silence fell over the arena, broken only when the announcer declared, "Victory to Michael of Earth." Mike raised a single bloodied fist, then walked calmly back to his team. In the stands, council members whispered urgently to each other. High Counselor Charles' 4 eyes blinked rapidly in succession. "How?" He asked no one in particular. The human had no natural weapons. Beside him, Ambassador Krex's skin had turned a pale blue of concern. "It seems," Krex said slowly, "that we have misunderstood the humans completely." The mood in the competitors' area had changed dramatically. Where once the humans had been ignored or mocked, now they were studied with careful attention. Alien eyes tracked their movements, recorded their training sessions, and analyzed their fighting techniques. "They're watching us," Ling said as she stretched before her morning routine. 3 luminaries stood at a distance, their crystal bodies oriented toward her. They never paid attention before. "Mike's victory changed everything," Jack replied. "Now they're trying to figure out how we fight." Rex entered the training area, his face more serious than usual. "The Luminary have developed a new defensive formation. They're arranging their crystal structures to create protective armor against punches." "And the Mindweavers?" Jack asked. "Worse," Rex said. They're practicing mental attacks designed to trigger fear responses in mammals. They studied our brain patterns while we were sleeping. Jack frowned. That's not against the rules, unfortunately. On the central view screen, tournament brackets updated to show the next round of matches. Team competitions would begin tomorrow. 4 fighters from each species working together against another team. Humans versus Mindweavers, Danny Reid. First match of the day. Perfect, Jack smiled. I've been working on a plan. Later that evening, while most competitors rested, the human team gathered in their quarters for a strategy session. Mindweavers attack from a distance, Jack explained, displaying holographic images of the telepathic aliens. Their power comes from focus and concentration. They're physically weak, but can stop your heart if they lock onto your brainwaves. So we don't let them concentrate, Mike suggested, punching his palm. Exactly, Jack nodded. Constant movement, unpredictable patterns. Danny and Rex, you'll create distractions while Mike and Ling close distance. Remember, they need eye contact to establish the strongest connections. What about their guardians? Ling asked, pointing to larger aliens accompanying the Mindweavers in training footage. Defensive only, Rex said. Strong but slow. I've been watching them. They telegraph their movements. The next morning, the arena buzzed with anticipation. After Mike's shocking victory, ticket prices had tripled as everyone wanted to see the strange humans fight. The 4 Mindweavers entered first, slender, pale beings with oversized heads and glowing eyes, flanked by their hulking guardians. The crowd cheered, expecting the telepaths to easily defeat the weaponless humans. When Jack's team entered, the arena grew quieter. The humans wore simple black uniforms, their hands wrapped in thin cloth, the only protection allowed under tournament rules. Begin, the announcer called. Immediately, the Mindweavers spread out, their eyes glowing brighter as they prepared their mental attacks. The Guardians formed a protective line between them and the humans. But the humans didn't attack as expected. Instead, they began moving in a chaotic pattern, never maintaining a straight line or predictable direction. Rex and Danny split wide, forcing the Guardians to divide their attention. One Mindweaver locked eyes with Mike, who suddenly staggered as pain lanced through his head. The alien's eyes glowed with triumph, until Ling appeared behind the Guardian, having vaulted over the distracted protector. Her palm strike to the Mindweaver's temple disrupted its concentration, freeing Mike. The crowd roared as the humans implemented their strategy flawlessly. Whenever a Mindweaver began focusing, another human would create a distraction or attack from an unexpected angle. One by one, the Mindweavers fell to precisely targeted strikes. Their guardians, too slow to keep up with the humans' coordinated movements, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. When the match ended, all 4 Mindweavers unconscious or yielding, the arena erupted. Victory to Team Earth, the announcer declared. In the council's private box, High Counselor Trell turned to his advisors. The humans are using strategy and teamwork, not just physical attacks, he observed. Call an emergency session. We need to reconsider what constitutes a weapon. As Jack's team left the arena, they noticed other species already modifying their training regimens, attempting to incorporate human fighting techniques into their preparations. They're learning, Jack said. The next matches will be harder. Good, Danny replied with a grim smile. I was worried this would be too easy. The tournament arena hummed with electric tension. After 2 weeks of shocking upsets and unexpected victories, the human team had reached the championship match. Their opponents, the legendary Apex Collective, undefeated for 5 tournament cycles. Jack paced nervously as his team prepared. The Apex are different from anyone you faced. They can merge their bodies into larger forms. We've studied the footage, Rex said, wrapping his hands carefully. They start as 8 separate fighters, then combine as they lose members. Mike punched his fists together. Doesn't matter how big they get, bigger they air. Harder they hit, Danny cut in. Don't get cocky. These aren't the Dravik or Mindweavers. The call came for both teams to enter the arena. The crowd had doubled in size for the final match, with viewing platforms now floating above the regular seating to accommodate the overflow. The Apex Collective entered first, 8 sleek, gray-skinned beings with flexible bodies that seemed to ripple with barely contained energy. They moved in perfect unison, their eyes glowing with the same purple light. The humans walked into a mixture of cheers and anxious murmurs. Though they had proven themselves repeatedly, many still doubted they could overcome the champions without natural weapons. High Counselor Trell stood to address the arena. The championship match will now begin. The Apex Collective versus Team Earth. Victory comes by surrender or incapacitation of all opponents. The signal sounded, and both teams moved. The Apex spread out in a practiced formation, surrounding the humans who stood back to back in a defensive circle. For several tense seconds, neither side attacked. Then Rex nodded slightly, and the humans exploded into action. Ling struck first, her lightning-fast kicks connecting with the nearest Apex fighter. The alien stumbled back, but quickly recovered, its skin hardening where she had struck. Mike engaged 2 Apex simultaneously, his powerful punches keeping them at bay. Danny grappled with another, using her wrestling skills to bring it to the ground. Rex moved like a shadow, striking pressure points with surgical precision. For a moment, it seemed the humans might overwhelm their opponents through sheer aggression, but then the Apex changed tactics. 2 injured Apex fighters melted together, their bodies merging into a larger, stronger form with 4 arms. It moved with impossible speed for its size, catching Ling with a sweeping blow that sent her flying across the platform. "Ling!" Mike shouted, turning to help, only to be caught by another Apex's attack. The remaining Apex fighters merged into 2 more combined forms. Now 3 larger entities faced the humans, each twice the size of a man, and many times stronger. Ling rose shakily, blood trickling from her mouth. "I'm fine," she gasped, though clearly injured. The largest Apex form charged Rex, who narrowly avoided its grasp. Danny tried to take it from behind, but a third arm sprouted from its back, catching her in midair and slamming her down. Mike roared in frustration, landing blow after blow on one combined Apex, but its malleable body absorbed the impacts. It caught his arm and twisted, the sickening sound of breaking bone echoing through the arena. Mike fell to one knee, cradling his broken arm. 3 humans down, the Apex communicated in a unified voice. "Surrender now." Jack watched in horror as his team was systematically dismantled. The Apex were too strong, too adaptable. Everything the humans had relied on, speed, technique, endurance, was being countered. But then he saw something unexpected. Determination burning in his team's eyes. Despite his broken arm, Mike stood again. Ling wiped blood from her face and assumed a fighting stance. Danny pulled herself up, favoring one leg but ready to continue. Rex, bleeding from several wounds, signaled to the others. The humans gathered together, battered but unbroken. "We're not done yet," Rex said quietly. The Apex forms converged on the humans, confident in their victory, and walked into a trap. Moving with perfect coordination, the humans separated the Apex fighters, preventing them from supporting each other. Injured and exhausted, fighting through pain, the humans somehow found a second wind. They weren't just fighting for victory anymore. They were fighting for Earth's place in the galaxy. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the impossible unfolded before them. The council chambers fell silent as Commander Jack Stone entered. His face still bore cuts and bruises from the final match, but he walked tall, pride evident in every step. 3 days had passed since the human team's impossible victory over the Apex Collective. The tournament's final moments had become legendary already. How Mike, with one functional arm, had delivered the knockout blow to the last Apex fighter. How Ling had used her opponent's strength against it. How Rex and Danny had worked together to disable the largest combined form. High Counselor Trell rose from his central seat, his 4 eyes fixed on Jack with a new intensity. "Commander Stone," Trell began, his voice echoing through the chamber. "The Council has called this special session to address concerns about human participation in the tournament." Jack maintained a neutral expression. "Concerns, Counselor?" "Yes." Trell gestured to a view screen showing highlights from the human victories. "Your species entered the tournament with what appeared to be no natural weapons, yet demonstrated combat abilities that many now believe should be classified as such." Murmurs spread through the gathered representatives. Jack noticed several nursing injuries. Evidently, some had already begun training in human fighting techniques. "Counselor," Jack responded calmly, "humans have been developing hand-to-hand combat methods for thousands of years. They're not weapons. They're knowledge, passed down through generations." Ambassador Krex, his skin now a thoughtful shade of green, joined the discussion. "That is precisely the issue, Commander. Your species did not evolve natural weapons because you turned your entire bodies into weapons through training." Jack glanced around the chamber, noting how the other representatives watched him with a mixture of fear, respect, and curiosity. Just weeks ago, they had dismissed humans as primitive newcomers. "The Pacification Treaty," Trell continued, "was designed to prevent species from harming each other with created weapons. Yet your fighting techniques are, in essence, created weapons." "They're also our heritage," Jack countered. "Earth's diverse cultures expressed themselves through these martial arts for millennia before we reached the stars. Would you ask us to abandon our cultural identity?" The chamber fell silent again as the Council considered his words. Finally, Trell spoke. "The Council has reached a decision. We will amend the treaty to include the following clause. Combat techniques requiring significant training shall be classified as weapons when used with intent to harm outside of sanctioned events." Jack started to protest, but Trell raised a hand. However, the High Counselor continued, "Humans will be granted an exemption for cultural heritage practices, provided they are used only in sanctioned tournaments, self-defense, or demonstration." Relief washed over Jack's face. "Thank you, Counselor." Additionally, Trell added, "Earth's status within the Council will be elevated. Your species has demonstrated qualities we underestimated. We would like human instructors to teach defensive techniques to our peacekeeping forces." Later that evening, Jack stood on a balcony overlooking the capital city, where his team was being celebrated at a reception below. Mike, his arm in a healing sleeve, was demonstrating boxing stances to a group of fascinated luminary. Lane moved through Tai Chi forms while Mindweavers observed intently. Rex and Danny were deep in conversation with Gorv, who now showed them respect as equals. Ambassador Krex joined Jack on the balcony, his skin shifting to warm orange tones of friendship. "You know," Krex said, "when the treaty banned weapons, many thought humans would be at a disadvantage." Jack smiled. "We've survived on Earth for hundreds of thousands of years, Ambassador. Long before we had spears or bows, we had these." He held up his fists. Krex's skin flickered with colors of amusement and respect. "The galaxy has much to learn from humans, it seems." "And we have much to learn from you," Jack replied, extending his hand. As they shook hands, a human gesture now spreading throughout the galaxy, Jack thought about how far they had come. The aliens had banned all weapons, expecting humans to be defenseless. Instead, they had discovered that humans themselves were the most formidable weapons of all.